podcast listeners, welcome to the NK News podcast. I'm your host, Jacko Zwetsloot, and today it is Tuesday, April 11, 2023. I'm joined in the NK News studio by Mr. Tae-ho Uhm, who is Director for North Korean Nuclear Affairs Negotiations at the South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs to talk about diplomacy and North Korean denuclearization. But first, a request and reminder, everyone, please leave a review about this episode on whatever platform you use and share this episode with everyone you think who should listen to it or who might be interested. What's more, like and subscribe to the whole series. Secondly, you can check out nknews.org, where every day my journalist colleagues put out the best quality North Korea-focused journalism, where a subscription for a year costs less than $1 a day, and that helps to fund this podcast as well as the journalistic work that we do. Thirdly, follow nknews.org on Twitter and me at JackoZ. Okay, so to introduce our guest today more fully, Mr. Tae-ho Uhm, or Tae-ho, is the Director for North Korean Nuclear Affairs Negotiations at the Office of the Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has held that position since August 2021. He's a career diplomat who joined the ministry in August 2005. From 2016 to 2018, he served as Assistant Secretary to the President for National Security Strategy at the Office of National Security. He doesn't have a Twitter account, but you can find the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at mofa_KR_ENG, and we'll share that link in the show notes. Welcome on the show, Director Uhm.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Director Uhm, can you give me your assessment on where are things right now? Where do things stand with regard to North Korean denuclearization?
Thank you. So I want to look at it from three angles. Number one, so we coined the term MBA. So number one is the M stands for muddling through. We see that North Korea is undergoing a very dire situation. State media said it is undergoing the worst national crisis, which is in Korean is 최대 국난. And also foreign exchange reserve is continuously diminishing. It is for the last 2 years, the economy has suffered minus growth rates. And it is suffering from a significant shortage of grains. And recently, there has been tragic reports about people starving to death in North Korea too. So what they're trying to do is they're trying their best to import as much grain as possible from China because currently the grain prices in North Korea is skyrocketing. And also, they are turning more and more to illicit sources of revenues, including cyber hacking and sending of using the overseas workers and ship-to-ship transfers. And recently, I saw a very good article on the NK News about possible arms sales to other countries too. So they're trying to hang in there in spite of the difficult situation. Now, instead of opening up the economy and trying to adopt some economic reform measures, the second approach that they're taking is they are bullying the neighbors.
Okay, so this is the B in NBA.
Yeah, this is the B. Yeah.
Okay.
They're trying to inject fear. And we all know this because we know that the North Koreans have conducted unprecedented level of missile provocations since last year, almost 90 ballistic missiles, including 8 ICBMs.
Yeah.
And they are disclosing all sorts of new weapon systems, including the underwater nuclear attack drones. They have disclosed their new tactical nuclear warheads, and they talk about mass production of tactical nukes. And just this morning, they held this Central Military Commission meeting, and Kim Jong Un was standing there pointing at a certain position in ROK, talking about their operational plans. So this is all aimed at trying to inject fear and to bully the international community. And
where was he pointing to? Do you know?
I won't elaborate, but if you see the photo, it's pretty evident where he is pointing at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it near here?
I won't elaborate.
All right.
It was not Seoul, but
Okay.
it was pointing at a certain position. And the A stands for appeasing or allaying the concerns of its people. So back in 2012, when Kim Jong Un first took power, he promised his people that his people would never have to tighten their belts again. But obviously we know that he failed to deliver. And now the rhetoric has changed. So what they're saying is, in our generation, we might have to tighten our belts, but we will make sure that the future generation will not have to do that. And he is saying that the regime is saying that the nuclear weapons is the means to bring that about. And I think bringing Kim Jong-un out as a means.
This is the young daughter.
Yes, the young daughter, as a kind of means of propaganda. I think it is part of it is to show and linking her, with the ICBMs and the nuclear weapons. Trying to do that, I think, is trying to kind of it's a kind of a way of propaganda, saying that all these weapons is for the next generation, and at the same time, he's trying to shift the blame to others. The North Koreans are basically blaming everybody, the RK, the U.S., Japan, even the United Nations, for what is for the dire situation in North Korea. But this is obviously for their internal purposes to appease their people. So that's our assessment of where North Korea is going. So
it's not good, basically.
It's just not good,
right.
And they're not showing any signs of coming back to dialogue. They seem just not interested.
Right, that way I think we reported on that yesterday at NK News that North Korea is not answering the hotline, which is not good for any kind of talks.
It's not good at all. Not good at all. And I think maintaining communication is just fundamental in any relations, and we're very worried about it. And we really urge North Korea to restore that line of communication. So what we're trying to do is just keep calm and press on with our 3D approach. We have emphasized this over and over. It is to deter North Korea's threats and to dissuade their nuclear and missile program development, and to leave the door to dialogue and diplomacy open.
Okay, so these are the 3 Ds, right?
Yes.
Deter, dissuade, and dialogue.
Yes, dialogue and diplomacy.
Is that basically a summary of President Yoon Suk-yeol's policy towards North Korean denuclearization?
Yes, right now, the approach that we are taking currently, this is basically aimed at showing North Korea that there is no other way to achieve whatever objective that they would have other than, coming back to negotiations. So by showing them that our robust deterrence capabilities and bolstering our trilateral security cooperation with the U.S. and Japan, and also dissuasion efforts, by responding firmly to their provocations and also cutting off their illicit revenue sources, but at the same time, leaving the door to dialogue open. By that, we're trying to show the North Koreans that this is the right path that they should take.
Now, generally, North Korea doesn't use these words, but generally, efforts to deter or dissuade, North Korea says, are things that actually close the door to dialogue, right? That when it wants dialogue, it doesn't want deterrence or dissuasion tactics used against it. So I'm just wondering, is there a tension between those 3 Ds, between deterrence and dissuasion on the one hand and dialogue on the other?
That's a very good question, but I would have to defer on that because we think really the whole purpose of deterrence and dissuasion is to bring them back to dialogue. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to, the only viable path to complete denuclearization of North Korea is through diplomacy and dialogue and negotiations. And deterrence is to show that developing nuclear weapons is not going to bring them the security that they desire. And also dissuasion is that they might try their efforts to evade sanctions, but we're going to show them that the international community, the willingness of the international community to denuclearize North Korea is always going to be greater than the North Korea's nuclear ambitions. That's the whole purpose of our dissuasion efforts. And that is why all those efforts is geared towards bringing North Korea back to the dialogue table.
How does the current policy of President Yoon Suk-yeol differ significantly from President Moon's policy of denuclearization of North Korea?
I think that is, when we talk about, I think the best way for me to explain that is to talk about the audacious initiative that my president announced on the Independence Day.
Okay. And what's that in a nutshell? What is the audacious initiative?
So the audacious initiative, in a nutshell, are the Yoon Suk-yeol government's denuclearization roadmap. And the subtitle of the audacious initiative is the denuclearized, peaceful, and prosperous Korean Peninsula. And while pursuing a negotiation process for complete denuclearization, we are offering corresponding measures, not just the economic ones, but political, military, and economic corresponding measures to the denuclearization that North Korea will be taking. Now, I think one of the significant features, I guess, of the Audacious Initiative, I would like to emphasize like 2 points. First of all, Audacious Initiative has measures that we can put in place from right now. Now, I've been working on the North Korean nuclear issue for quite some time, around like 15 years.
Oh.
And I've been involved in developing a lot of denuclearization roadmaps. But in the past, most of the roadmaps would start by the freezing measures of North Korea's nuclear program.
So no more tests and no more new weapons.
And freezing of Yongbyon facilities and all other facilities, a complete freeze and then we will give something back for the freeze and so on and so forth. But what we did with the Audacious Initiative, we tried to have a comprehensive roadmap that puts in place what we can do right now, where North Korea is continuing with its nuclear development, refusing to come to dialogue. Then what can we do? And that's where the 3D approach comes in. And we have kind of like laid out in this Audacious Initiative what we can do right now to bring North Korea back to the negotiation table and show them that this is the only choice in front of them. And also, secondly, it has, for example, in the past, some of the denuclearization roadmap has focused too much on the economic measures as corresponding measures. But now I got to say, this is a denuclearization roadmap, which means this is our plan to sit down with North Korea and negotiate the denuclearization of North Korea. So I cannot reveal all the details of this Audacious Initiative, but then I can say that it encompasses not just economic corresponding measures, but political and military measures. My president already has mentioned about it includes measure about the normalization of relations between the U.S. and North Korea, and also some military confidence-building measures that we have put in place in the Audacious Initiative. And also, one more thing to highlight is that we have put in features. We call it the initial phase measures that would kind of provide the momentum for the negotiation process itself. So one of the key features is the RFEP. We call it the RFEP. It is Resources for Food Exchange Program. Now, what we have designed in this RFEP program is that we would be willing to work with the international communities to provide the necessary sanctions exemption measures to allow for North Korea to export its mineral resources in exchange for not cash, but food, medicine, and items of such sort. And that we would put the funds in an escrow account, and then North Korea can export their mineral resources in exchange for the food and medicine. So we hope this will provide the momentum that will keep the arduous, the negotiation process ongoing until we reach an agreement on the complete denuclearization of North Korea.
This program you just mentioned here, the RFEP, is that something that can be done before North Korea comes back to the negotiating table?
I don't think anything can be done, if North Korea does not come back to the table. I mean, they have to, for something to be implemented, we need to talk to North Korea. And we need to discuss and negotiate, the details of it for it to be implemented. But what we are saying is that we want to show North Koreans to take a good look at this Audacious Initiative.
Right. So when you say that there are things that we can implement right now, you mean as soon as North Korea starts dialogue again, that's the right now that we're talking about?
No. So those are two different things.
I see.
So like when I say right now, it's what we can do, what Korea can do, what the international community can do, and what the ROC, US, Japan, or like-minded groups can do right now.
Even before North Korea says, let's talk again.
Because if North Korea does not come back to the table, we're limited in what we can do.
Right.
But so we have put in place what we can do as an alliance, as the RK government, what we can do right now. But then once they do come back to the table with sincerity, what we're saying is that we have these measures in place, and we want North Korea to really have a good look and, assess it rather than just rejecting it. Because my president was inaugurated on the 10th of May. right?
And it's almost a year ago.
Yeah, it's almost a year ago, right? And then the date that we announced this audacious initiative is the 15th of August, just 3 months after inauguration.
Yeah.
And I think this is really, I'm pretty sure this is unprecedented.
Mm.
And I think that is kind of like, it really speaks volumes about the sincerity and the willingness of my government to really engage in this process and, negotiate with the North Koreans. And I think we want North Koreans to see that. Now, sadly, Kim Jong Un issued a statement just 4 days after the announcement of the audacious initiative to rejected it. But we really urge them to take a good look and consider coming back to the dialogue table.
Yes, and that is indeed the long-standing problem, is that North Korea has shown an unwillingness to talk to either South Korea or the United States. Since 2020, there really hasn't been much going on between the two Koreas, especially after North Korea blew up the Inter-Korean Liaison building in Kaesong. Well, first question is, I know there are some things that are done behind the scenes that we can't possibly know about, but what can you tell us about ways that the ROK government has reached out to try to begin conversations with North Korea? Has President Yoon sent a letter, or has there been anything sent to the office, the North Korean mission to the United Nations? What are some of the different ways that we've tried to get the negotiations happening again?
Basically, I think the communication right now is very limited because I think the international community, you, me, everybody, is in agreement that North Korea is showing no appetite for dialogue. And when the other side is showing no appetite for dialogue, there's only a certain amount of things that you can do. And we are not chasing after them. So we are going to be consistent and principled in our approach. So that is our approach. So it's not less. I don't think sending a letter or anything like that would make any situation different. So what we're trying to do is, again, I'm going back to the 3D approach. We're really showing them that, okay, you are refusing dialogue. You are just, draining all your scarce resources in your nuclear and missile programs. Then we're going to show you that is not going to get you anywhere. That is not going to be, effective in achieving your goals. The only way that you can achieve the desired objective for your people is to come back to the negotiation table.
Okay, so as I understand it, then the only realistic scenario for revival of the negotiations is when North Korea sends a message that it's ready to talk again.
Well, I will not try to predict, how this would all come about, but
right. But you're not going to chase them.
No,
you put the word out. We're ready to talk. So now it's up to North. The ball's in their court, basically.
I'm pretty sure that they follow every reporting of NK News, Yonhap News, and everything. And I'm sure they are following very closely the messages put out by my president, by my foreign minister, and the special representative. They are very well aware where we are. And I think we are clearly communicating to them, our government's positions.
In the view of the Republic of Korea government, what went wrong the last time there was negotiations between North Korea and the outside world?
You mean the Hanoi?
Yes. So, well, in that not specifically in Hanoi, but in that process, that time there, 2018 to 2019, what went wrong? Why did that not go any further?
Okay. Basically, I think, it was the limits of the top-down process. So, when a summit meeting happens, let's say, we're preparing right now for our ROK-US summit meeting, right? Yeah. There is so much work going on in order to ensure a successful summit. There are many things to discuss in advance in order for the leaders to sit down and really derive a concrete outcome. Mm-hmm. Now, that process basically did not exist in the summit diplomacy between, that happened in 2018 and 19. So when the talks collapsed in 2019, I think it really showed the limits of, a top-down approach. And I don't think Kim Jong Un was really ready for what the international community, the U.S., really needed to ensure the path to complete denuclearization of North Korea.
Hey, you've been working on North Korean affairs for a long time now. You said, 15 years or so?
Yeah.
Okay. So doesn't it seem to you that talking with North Korea or negotiating with North Korea or engaging with North Korea it's basically a cycle of stop, start over many years, right? That we talk with them for a while and then it somehow fizzles out. There was the six-party talks and then that stopped. And then we had the talks between Trump and Kim and then that stopped. It just seems to be a stop-start process all the time. How is there a way to avoid that? Is there a way to somehow keep North Korea engaged?
I think that is the intention of the Audacious initiative, and that is the thinking behind our crafting of the denuclearization roadmap. Because, like you said, let's say we're like driving from New York to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles stands for complete denuclearization of North Korea. We have, in the past, some of the approaches that were tried is that, okay, we'll get to Chicago. And then once we get to Chicago, then we will talk about how we're going to get to the next destination, maybe Las Vegas, somewhere closer to Los Angeles. But then our past experience in negotiating with North Korea really shows us that type of step-by-step negotiations really would not work. That has been our past experience. So what we're trying to do is we want to set the destination of our GPS to Los Angeles. And we want to keep the car moving all the time. We want North Korea, ROK, all in the car to stay in the car until we get to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go details, but that is the basic idea of our audacious initiative, and that's why we have tried to design a different process, a different roadmap compared to the past negotiations.
Okay, but sticking with your initiative there of the very long road trip from New York to Los Angeles, it seems to me that a problem there is that North Korea has said very clearly, we don't want to go to Los Angeles. Los Angeles is not a place that we ever intend to go to, not in this lifetime. And then it makes me wonder, well, what would happen if the world simply accepted that and said, well, North Korea is not going to go to Los Angeles. In other words, North Korea is a nuclear power. We simply accept that and we move on. What would happen?
That will not happen.
Okay.
And I can assure you that it is not going to happen. I think this is a collision of wills. And I think my president has made it clear that the point and the whole objective and focus of our efforts is to make sure that North Korea realize that the will of the international community to denuclearize North Korea is going to be stronger and bigger than North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Because denuclearization, a peace without denuclearization is bound to be fake peace. And that is why North Korea, what North Korea is trying to do right now, that has been their whole objective all along for the last 30 years in developing their nuclear weapons. The reality is that their development of nuclear weapons has deteriorated their economy. It has undermined their security, and it has aggravated their isolation. But they're trying to hide that, and they're trying to inject fear in the international community and try to sow nervousness in our international community in order to make their possession of nuclear weapons a fait accompli. But the whole point of our efforts of 3D is to show that that is not going to happen in a million years. And once if the international community stands united and we show that will not be the case, I think North Korea will have no choice but to come back to denuclearization talks.
Or to go back to the analogy, get in the car and agree to go to Los Angeles. Now, of course, relations between North Korea and South Korea and North Korea and the United States don't exist in a geopolitical vacuum. Just as going back to the road trip, there are a lot of cars on the road all going different places. Here we have in Northeast Asia, there are a lot of serious challenges that involve, for example, the People's Republic of China, the East and South China Seas, Japan, the Philippines, Taiwan. Can you sort of speak a little bit to how does the government of the Republic of Korea try to balance multiple geopolitical issues while also focusing on North Korean denuclearization at the same time? Where does this fit in that context more broadly?
I think what we need to emphasize here is that amid this poly-crisis world and amid a lot of geopolitical competitions, I really want to emphasize that North Korean nuclear issue is maybe the one clear issue where all the interests of all the relevant parties align. And I think that is the proof of that is that the U.S., China, Russia, and all the Security Council members have unanimously agreed to adopt the 11 Security Council resolutions that call for complete, irreversible, and verifiable abandonment of their WMD and ballistic missile programs. And I think that is the focus. That I think we have to focus on that. And I think this is going to provide an opportunity for us to cooperate, even amidst all this competition, geopolitical competitions. And that is our, as person, dealing with the North Korean nuclear issue, that is the approach that we're taking.
Now, recently, the People's Republic of China got involved in international diplomacy by brokering a rapprochement between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Could Beijing maybe take on the problem of North Korean denuclearization and lead the way in finding a solution here?
I won't make any predictions, but as I said, I believe there is we share the interest in pursuing complete denuclearization of North Korea, and I think we have been encouraging China to play a constructive role to that end. To persuade North Korea to cease its provocations, to induce North Korea back to the dialogue table. And China itself has been emphasizing that point. And I believe China really has the ability and the influence needed to play that role. So we always encourage China to play a constructive role to that end.
Are there any early signs that China is listening to your persuasion?
At various levels, my foreign minister and my special rep, we regularly contact the Chinese. Obviously, we don't agree on everything. Mm-hmm. That is pretty evident. But then we do agree that I think we all agree that North Korea's further escalation of North Korea's provocative behavior is not desirable, and that it would be desirable to have North Korea back to the negotiating table. But as we said earlier, North Korea has not shown any signs of, how should I put it, showing a positive attitude. So we have some limits. But then we continue to have our conversations with the Chinese.
Now, these days, there's a lot of discussion in media, academia, think tanks, and other public fora about South Korea maybe having U.S. nuclear weapons stationed on its territory once more, or maybe even developing its own nuclear weapons. President Yoon himself mentioned it in January this year. What is the official policy of the Republic of Korea on nuclear weapons, either stationed in or possessed by the Republic of Korea?
Well, I think my president has made it very clear that we have confidence in the U.S. extended deterrence. We also are having very close consultation and coordination with the U.S. on how to strengthen the effectiveness of the U.S. extended deterrence. And my government has repeatedly made clear about our strong commitment to uphold the NPT regime. So all in all, I think there is no question about the direction and the policies of my government. Now, there is talk about the need for, the public, opinion about the need to, have our own nuclear weapons. That opinion is there, but, what we have to see with those numbers is not whether or not South Korea is going to go nuclear. It's just we need to see how the seriousness the Korean public feels about the threats that North Korea is making, by talking about preemptive tactical nuclear strike on Korea. So it is a sign that we have to take this threat seriously, and we have to, the alliance has to bolster our readiness, and we have to strengthen our trilateral coordination. And that should be the focus of our discussion.
If there were nuclear weapons here in South Korea, would that make South Korea more or less safe?
I wouldn't go there because that is not our policy.
Okay. Now, because North Korea is not seen by South Korea as a separate country, but as an integral part of the full territory of the Republic of Korea, there is a separate ministry that deals with North Korean issues, namely the Ministry of Unification. And now it's coordination between the Ministry of Unification and your own ministry, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, seems like can be sometimes a delicate operation. I remember during President Moon Jae-in's term, it felt like the MOU was shut out of some of those negotiations and talks with North Korea. So you're in office. Now, how does your office, the Office of the Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, coordinate with counterparts at the Ministry of Unification and the Ministry of National Defense? How is that division of labor?
I think our coordination is great. And I think the proof is that, when we were actually writing the Audacious initiative, we had our division of labor in that. So the NSC played a coordinating role.
The National Security Council.
Yes, played a coordinating role. And this is a denuclearization roadmap. So obviously, my foreign ministry took a very big part in coming up with the contents of the Audacious initiative. But then, it all includes the economic corresponding measures of that, and also the military and the confidence building measures and so on and so forth. So that's where the MND comes in. That's where the MOU comes in. The foreign ministry. We will sit down together, very, very often, and then we would, put our heads together to come up with a common plan, and that is the product that we have, which is the Audacious initiative. So I'm very proud of, we communicate very often. We hold meetings, we meet separately, in official meetings. So I do not see, you called it delicate, but I don't see it as a delicate relationship.
Okay. Earlier, you mentioned the possibility of North Korea and the United States normalizing their relations as being, somewhere down the track a possible outcome of successful negotiations. Is it ever possible that the two Koreas could mutually recognize and have normal relations with each other?
Well,
state-to-state relations.
Yeah, somewhere down the road. But I really think denuclearization has to be at the center of all that discussion. Because, like I said, I want to tell you the policy goal, our government's policy goal. We say we pursue sustainable peace on the Korean Peninsula through complete denuclearization of North Korea. Now, it is not and, it is through. So that basically sums up our thinking, because sustainable, in order for peace on the Korean Peninsula to be sustainable, the denuclearization has to be there. So for whatever corresponding measures, whether it be economic, political, or military, I think the denuclearization is the fundamental condition that has to be met.
In 2018, a U.S. ROK working group was launched to coordinate North Korea sanctions and other matters. So is this working group still actively meeting?
No, we don't have a working group named after that, but we have consultations at every level, literally. But that specific format is not here.
Now, as the United States is a treaty ally of the Republic of Korea, one might expect that coordinating with it on matters related to North Korea could be fairly easy. But of course, every different country has its own interests and priorities to protect and promote. So how is the South Korean government handling that challenge of coordinating things together with the United States?
Well, I could not ask for a better partnership right now. And like my special rep said, Representative Ambassador Kim Jong Un said at his opening statement last week at a trilateral meeting, they literally coordinate on a daily basis. And I think North Korea is helping in a sense because they have over 90 ballistic missiles.
Yeah.
So every time that they do that, so we get together to put our heads together to share the assessment, share the information, and consult the way forward. And on top of that, we have our regular trilateral meetings, bilateral meetings. So the coordination is just I think top notch. And I think I could not. It's amazing how aligned we are when it comes to our policies vis-a-vis North Korea.
Now, as you know, of course, North Korea sometimes likes to, or it seems, who can know their intentions, but it does seem that North Korea wants to drive a wedge between South Korea and the United States at times. But
they always do, yeah.
If as you say, increased activity by North Korea serves to drive the two countries together, the United States and South Korea, then the only way that North Korea could, or the best way for North Korea to drive a wedge between you two is to do nothing and remain quiet.
In a sense. I could maybe, I want to, use this example. So if you remember when my president traveled to Japan very recently,
yes.
It was a historic trip.
Yep.
On that same day, in the morning, very early in the morning, they launched an ICBM into our East Sea. Now, they might have thought that would send a strong message and that would kind of complicate the situation. But in fact, what it did was really it provided the rationale for further strengthening our coordination with Japan when it comes to countering North Korea's nuclear threats and really bolstering our trilateral security cooperation. So, they have their own intentions, but I think, the more they provocate, the more threats that they make, that is only making our defense, our combined defense posture, that our security cooperation stronger and stronger. And that is what we mean by saying that their nuclear weapons development only ends up in undermining their own security.
Now, some critics argue that South Korea is not an equal alliance partner of the US, but a kind of subordinate vassal state or a weaker partner. And I wonder how you respond to that. How much agency does the Republic of Korea have to lead the way and to act?
What do you mean? What do you mean by how much agency?
Well, when I say agency, I mean how much decision-making power does South Korea have, to pursue its own course in leading the way in denuclearization, or does every time President Yoon have an idea, does he have to check with the White House first to make sure that it's okay?
I told you about our close coordination, and the almost on a daily basis communication, and our policies being aligned, and that is what we say when that is the approach that the alliance is taking. It is not somebody, one side kind of, having their own way to the other. It's not a competition. We have our policies, goals are aligned. Our assessment is aligned. So we might have some discussions about the details, the concrete steps that we would take, the first step, the second step, third step. We might have our discussions on that. But then we are completely aligned on how we view the situation and where we're going, the objective of our path. So I think in that sense, I do not see any of the issues that you have just raised.
Okay, apart from the United States, there are, of course, other other countries in the region, China, Russia, Japan, all have a stake and an interest in seeing sustainable regional peace in Northeast Asia. And I'm wondering, since the six-party talks framework has been inactive since North Korea pulled out of it, actually this month, in April 2009, 14 years ago this week, North Korea pulled out of that. So how does South Korea coordinate with China, Russia, and Japan?
That's a very good question. And there's a point that I want to emphasize. Obviously, Japan, I already talked about a lot. We have our, just last week, we had it was a very successful trilateral meeting. And we also issued a joint statement about the importance of fully implementing the UN Security Council resolutions. And, also right now, Japan is serving on the Security Council. And we are hoping to join the Security Council next year. And that we have so many opportunities and so many reasons why we need to coordinate when it comes to countering North Korea's nuclear threats. So that is that. Now, China and Russia, we know that there is geopolitical competition, or however you want, I can put it. And there's a war going on, by Russia and Ukraine. And that really limits the communication and consultation between some of the members of the six-party talks. But in that dynamics, I think Korea is pretty much the only player who regularly communicates with all of the partners, obviously all of the five partners. So we have our consultations with the Russians. We have our regular consultations with the Chinese. My SR met with his Russian counterpart at the, on the sidelines of the G20 meeting, so on and so forth. And I think that is, in that way, Korea is playing a very valuable role in, continuing the consultations, maintaining the communications regarding the North Korea policy issues. And we are going to continue to do that to really encourage, when it comes to our trilateral coordination, to strengthen our cooperation and to be more aligned, but with China and Russia, to really encourage them to play a constructive role when it comes to, and focus on our, mutual interest when it comes to the North Korean nuclear issue.
Could a revived six-party talks framework be a potential format for going ahead with denuclearization negotiations?
I think there could be any format, but I think we have made clear that the door to dialogue remains open, and we are ready to talk, anytime, anywhere. So I don't want to limit any, make any predictions about the format, but I think, what is important is for North Korea to realize that that is the only path forward and to come back to the negotiation table.
Now, some people might get the idea that as director for North Korean nuclear affairs negotiations, that since North Korea is not negotiating, you don't have much to do these days. But I imagine you're probably quite busy.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of a sketch of what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What's that like?
Yeah, of course. I'm in charge of negotiating with North Korea, but there's so much work to do, even when North Korea does not come back to the dialogue table. And that is what I mentioned about the international, making sure that the international community shows North Korea that their common will to denuclearize North Korea is going to be always stronger and bigger than their nuclear ambitions. And that is pretty much, that sums up the work that I do. This coalition building, the building of the solidarity of the international community, and preparing for negotiations and having a detailed plan, always being ready for negotiations, is a lot of work.
Now, previously you were Assistant Secretary to President Moon Jae-in for National Security Strategy at the Office of National Security. Are you able to share anything about that experience or a look back on that now?
It is actually, I joined the president's office in 2016. And I worked there until 2018.
Wow!
So it's like a half and half. So I had half of my experience was with the Park Geun-hye administration, and half of it was with the Moon Jae-in administration in the president's office. Right. It's a rare experience.
Yeah.
But then what I do want to emphasize is that no matter what administration it is, our commitment to complete denuclearization of North Korea is the same across the administration. So this is a goal that Korea will never give up. And that is my experience coming out of working in the different administrations on this North Korean nuclear issue.
This year marks 70 years since the armistice agreement was signed that put the Korean War on long-term pause. It doesn't seem that we are any closer to a permanent solution or agreement between the two Koreas right now. So speaking for yourself as a Korean and not in your official government capacity, where would you like to see North Korean nuclear affairs negotiations in a year's time?
In a year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would obviously want them to come back to the negotiation table. It really helps no one to make this provocation. And it always saddens me. I sometimes, it really gives me bad dreams to think about North Korea draining all the scarce resources that it has, refusing to receive any humanitarian aid from the international community, and to think about the dire human rights and humanitarian situation in North Korea, and to see the North Korean regime just focus on developing its nuclear and missile programs, it is just tragic. So what I would really like to see in a year's time is to see the North Korean regime realize that this is not going to get them anywhere. My SR in the last meeting,
Special Representative Ambassador Kim Jong Un.
Special Representative Ambassador Kim Jong Un. He emphasized, last week in our trilateral meeting, in his opening remarks, that North Korea is trying to misguide its people to believe that their North Korean nuclear weapons is some sort of a magic wand that can deliver anything. But in reality, it is not. It is only a self-destructive boomerang. That's what he said. And we really want them to, realize that and come back to the denuclearization table to seek prosperity for their people.
And if that happens, if North Korea does come back to negotiations, would you be one of the people in the room meeting with North Koreans?
I hope so. Yeah.
Are you ready for that?
Yes. Yeah. Of course.
All right. Well, we wish you good luck with that. Thank you very much. Tae-ho, Director of North Korean Affairs Negotiations, North Korean Nuclear Affairs Negotiations. That's a long title. At the Office of the Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you already have an NK News account, and if you're a think tank, business, or academic institution, check out NK Pro. Our NK Pro platform offers unparalleled services specifically catered to the needs of professionals who monitor developments on the Korean Peninsula. In fact, I believe the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is an NK Pro subscriber.
Yes.
Inquire about access or a free trial membership by writing an email to membership@nknews.org today. Our thanks, as always, go to Brian Betts and Arias Dare for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius, Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, etc. Thank you very much, and listen again next time.